とかくマスメディアから排除されがちなこれらの人物の肉声を取り上げる。
Imagine being murdered and cannibalized, only for the man who killed you to become a glorified celebrity, able to walk free. Today, I'm going to be talking about the disturbing tale of Issei Sagawa and the media's shocking reaction. To understand how Issei Sagawa became one of the most infamous cannibals in history, we need to go back to where it all started. Issei Sagawa was born on April 26, 1949 in Kobe, Japan. Into a life of privilege, he was fortunate enough to have wealthy parents. His father, Akira Sagawa, was a wealthy businessman and the president of a highly successful company. His family was well respected and powerful, which would later play a crucial role in keeping him out of prison. But despite growing up with wealth and comfort, Issei Sagawa's early life was anything but normal. Sagawa was born prematurely, so small that he could fit into the palm of his father's hand. Doctors feared that he wouldn't survive. As he grew, he remained physically weak and frail, standing only 4'9" as an adult. His small stature made him feel inferior, and he often described himself as having a deep sense of inadequacy. From a young age, Sagawa developed disturbing obsessions. He later claimed that his cannibalistic desires began as early as the first grade when he saw his male classmate's leg, and he wondered what it would taste like. By the time he reached adolescence, his fantasies became much more violent and sexual, always revolving around the idea of consuming human flesh. But Sagawa wasn't interested in eating just anyone. He was fixated specifically on Western women. Tall, blonde, and strong, the exact opposite of him. He believed that if he was able to kill one and eat her, then that would somehow make him more powerful, compensating for his own perceived weakness. By the time Sagawa was 24, his obsession with cannibalism had grown into something uncontrollable. He had been fantasizing about consuming flesh, but his fantasies were no longer enough. He needed to act. He needed to kill. His first known attempt at cannibalism came when he was just 24 years old. In 1972, while attending Wako University in Tokyo, Sagawa became fixated on a young, tall girl. He never revealed her name, but he later described her as the perfect embodiment for his desires. Weeks after weeks, he followed her, memorizing her routine. He watched her from a distance, lingering outside her apartment building, imagining what it would be like to kill and eat her. The more he watched, the stronger his compulsion became. He felt it was his destiny. One night, he finally made his move. Under the cover of darkness, he broke into her apartment from an open window. While the woman was asleep, he slowly creeped into her room. As he stood over her, he could hardly contain his excitement. This was it, the moment he had dreamed of for years. But then, something went wrong, at least for him. She woke up. She screamed, startled by the small trembling man over her. Sagawa panicked. He hadn't expected this, and because of the small stature, the woman was easily able to overpower him, throwing him down to the floor. However, he would quickly run away, escaping into the night. The woman almost immediately called the police, and Sagawa was arrested shortly after. Given the circumstances, it was clear he had intended to do something far worse than the simple trespassing. But despite the clear danger he posed, Sagawa was never properly punished. Instead of serving real jail time, his wealthy father intervened. With money and connections, he managed to get his son off the hook. Sort of. Instead of being charged with attempted murder or assault, Sagawa was merely charged with attempted SA, a lesser charge that carried fewer consequences. The system failed. Instead of recognizing the warning signs, instead of stopping him before he escalated, Sagawa was given another chance to blend into society. No psychiatric treatment, no prison sentence, just freedom. And what did his family do? They sent him away, hoping that a change of scenery would fix him. But monsters don't change. They just wait and wait for the right opportunity. After the incident, Sagawa left Japan and moved to France to study literature at the Sorbonne University. But he wasn't there for education. His real reason? He was there because France was full of the type of women he had been fantasizing over his entire life. This was the place where he could start over, where he could refine his methods, and finally turn his fantasies into reality. It would take nearly a decade, but eventually, Sagawa found his next victim. And this time, There would be no mistakes. Almost every night I would bring a prostitute home, then try to shoot them, but for some reason my fingers froze up and I couldn't pull the trigger. Night after night, he hires a prostitute and he tries to shoot him, but he just doesn't have the nerve. He would pull out a rifle when they were turned around and he would aim it at them, but he would never actually pull the trigger. He can't bring himself to shoot someone because he's too scared, thinking about what would happen to him or his reputation. He would only be able to get over this a couple years later when he met his classmate, Renée. Sagawa became completely obsessed with her. Renée was a classmate that attended the same university. Issei Sagawa invited Renée over to her apartment using the excuse that he needed help with the homework assignment. However, he had a secret sinister intent, which I'm sure you can assume what it was. She had no idea she had just stepped into the home of a man who had been fantasizing about killing and eating her for years. On June 11, 1981, Renée sat at a desk reading poetry out loud. As she read, he stood behind her, raised a rifle, and pulled the trigger. She died instantly, but for Sagawa, the murder was just the beginning. For the next 2 days, he mutilated her body, consuming parts of her flesh, but before he would begin to do that, he would first essay Renée's corpse. He later described the act as a dream come true. He even took photographs of himself eating her remains as if it were some kind of grotesque celebration. Obviously, I can't show any of these pictures, but you can find them easily online. Sagawa wasn't as clever as he thought. When he tried to dispose of Renée's body, or whatever was left of it, in a public park, he was caught almost immediately. The police arrested him, and he confessed everything without hesitation. He didn't even try to hide what he had done. It seemed like he would be behind bars forever. Sagawa was declared legally insane by French authorities. Most people speculate that Sagawa's father probably used his influence and power, not to mention his money, to help win this trial. He was sent to a psychiatric institution, but because he was a foreign citizen, France decided to deport him back to Japan. When he arrived in Japan, he was declared mentally sane, but due to legal loopholes, Japanese authorities couldn't prosecute him for a number of crimes committed in another country. This was because Japan wasn't actually allowed the documents which would show what crimes he committed. Issei Sagawa was free. Free to roam, free to shop, free to chat with his neighbor. But instead of hiding his dark past, Sagawa embraced it. The public were horrified, but also fascinated. Sagawa had done something so grotesque, so unimaginable, that people couldn't look away. He quickly became a true crime sensation. Newspapers, magazines, and TV shows wanted to hear his story. Instead of being shunned, he was treated like a curiosity, an oddity that people wanted to examine up close. And Sagawa? He was more than happy to share his story in gruesome detail. One of the first things he did was write a book about the murder, titled In the Fog. It was an autobiographical account of the crime, complete with his own disturbing illustrations and reflections on what he had done. The book became a bestseller in Japan, shocking and disturbing readers. But he didn't stop there. He wrote multiple books, including ones that romanticized and glorified cannibalism. He even worked with Japanese horror manga artists, contributing grotesque illustrations of his crime. His involvement in underground art and literature further cemented his status as a bizarre cult figure. Imagine that, writing about your own murder and making money from it. But it wasn't just books. Sagawa became a regular guest on Japanese talk shows, and he didn't just discuss his crime, he spoke about it so casually, even joking about it as if it were just some unusual quirk. One of his most infamous moments was when he was asked what human flesh tasted like. His response? He said it melts like tuna in your mouth. He described eating Renée Hartevelt's body in the same way a food critic might describe a fine meal. Disturbingly, many Japanese viewers found him entertaining. He became a bizarre celebrity, some whose crime was so shocking that it became almost surreal. He was invited to appear in magazines, he modeled for photographs, and he even had a short-lived career as a food critic. Sagawa even appeared in his own horror film. He started the 1992 movie Japanese Cannibal, a film that capitalized on his crime, essentially turning into a fictionalized version of himself. It was an underground hit, appealing to those fascinated by true crime stories and extreme horror. And if that wasn't bizarre enough, Sagawa was also in the adult film industry. He acted in explicit films where his past was referenced, further exploiting his own infamy. It wasn't just about the money either, it was about the attention. Sagawa reveled in being the cannibal celebrity. He once said in an interview, "People can't stop talking about me, and that means I'll never die." But fame built on horror doesn't last forever. By the early 2000s, public sentiment shifted. People began to reject the idea that Sagawa was some kind of morbid curiosity. He wasn't some sort of misunderstood genius. He was a murderer who had never faced justice. The story of Issei Sagawa isn't just about murder. It's about society's morbid fascination with killers. He wasn't a genius. He was a murderer who got away with it. And yet for decades, people listened to him. They bought his books. They watched his interviews. They made him rich. So what does that say about us? Why do we let criminals like Sagawa become famous? And how many others will follow in his footsteps, knowing that even the worst crimes can turn into a spotlight? By 2010, Sagawa was living in poverty, suffering from a stroke that left him dependent on his brother for care. He could no longer walk, and his fame had faded into a shame. Only a couple years later, on November 24, 2022, Issei Sagawa would die at the age of 73. No mourning crowds, no headlines celebrating his life, just the quiet end of a man who once revealed his own monstrous legacy. But the chilling fact remains, he got away with it. He took a life, confessed, and walked free. And instead of punishment, he was given a platform. Do you think justice was served? Or is this proof that sometimes the worst people can escape fate? Don't forget to like and subscribe, as well as leave a comment, because honestly it helps me improve. Also, I wanted to quickly thank Dubby for sponsoring me. You can find the link in the description. They have great energy drinks, and honestly you guys should check them out, especially if you like anime, because they're the official partner with Crunchyroll. You can use my code RetroPop, which is on screen right now, all capitals, to get 10% off your order, and all profit I gain from that goes directly back into these videos to make content for you guys. You know, I could get a new microphone, stuff like that, just overall improve. I also recently started a Discord, which you can join using the link in my bio or the description. Come hang out, it's pretty fun. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and stay safe.